One of the scariest things was the community college campus. For me, I was like, man, I haven't experienced this fear since I was at the
Yeah,
level 4 yard. in
you were scared of
California.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, people will be
and how
surprised to
scary
hear
this
that,
is.
Berto.
You're listening to Creativity Unconfined. Stay tuned to learn about how the arts unlock the doors for those who are imprisoned.
Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of Creativity Unconfined. I remain, as ever, Dave Gussack, the director for the Florida State University Institute for the Arts and Art Therapy with the Imprisoned. We're going to try something different today. I'm very excited about this because those of you who tuned in last week got a chance to hear a lot about Berto Lule and his story about his own experience with incarceration, his development as an artist, and his place in the community, and seeing some of his most wonderful works. But like often happens, once the cameras are turned off, more conversations flourish. And I found out so many wonderful things about Berto and more stories about some of his work and his background of his work and his own involvement in the community that I was like, we've got to have him back. Let's do a part 2. So today, yes, today we get to bring Berto Lule back. He was willing to come all the way back from California to come meet with us yet again to hear more about his work. So let's bring Berto back out here. Oh my goodness, it's great to see you, my friend. Oh.
Hey, thank you for having me back.
Are you kidding? This is great. I'm so very excited about this. And one of the things that we didn't get a chance to speak about last week was this wonderful series that you have developed. And you know what we'll do? We're just going to put the one art piece up there that just intrigued me and the story behind it. But I'm going to let you, of course, have you tell the story about these pieces. So let's bring these pieces up. Wonderful. Tell us about this.
Okay, so the title of this work is called Investigation number 15. So I have this series of artworks that I do, and it's an ongoing series, and the title for every piece that's in the series is Investigation, followed by the numbered iteration. This started during my undergrad at UCLA. At UCLA, one of the more interesting things that happens as I enter UCLA is that they kind of like tell me that I should stop doing what I'm doing. And this happens to every artist. Like they want me to do something new, or they want to bring out other elements that I guess they saw that I wasn't seeing in my portfolio.
Now, at this point, how long had you been out of prison already?
At this point, so I started at UCLA in 2018. In the fall of 2018, I had been out of prison about maybe 2 years.
Yeah. Okay.
About 2
Wow.
years. So
And now once again, people are going to tell you what you should be doing.
well, in this case, they were telling me what not to do.
Okay.
And but so the thing was, so for example, like a lot of the drawings I do, like the one that we were talking about in the last episode, which is titled Fresh Out, May 27, 2016. That's the day I was released.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while. Took a couple of weeks of just working on it. And in UCLA, their program is 10-week quarters.
Mm-hmm.
And so they want you to work fast. That you hit the ground running there. And my drawing instructor at the time, who I want to give a big shout out to, Benjamin Weissman, who's was a big mentor of mine, and he's a really good artist himself as well. He's in a lot of shows. But Benjamin wanted 10 drawings in 10 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And he wanted his drawings to be no smaller than 3 feet by 5 feet. Mm-hmm. And this, for me, this was such a big challenge because, as you see, the drawing that I showed, Fresh Out, that's only about like 16 by 20. It's not a huge piece.
That's one here on the left.
Yeah. So for me, that's not gonna happen. Like drawing in this mode wasn't gonna fly in Benjamin's class. Now that there's some people that completely ignore Benjamin. They're like, I'm not doing that. I'm doing what I'm doing, right? And, artists are artists. Like there were some people that worked on one drawing the whole quarter, but for me, I took it like as a challenge. I'm like, okay, I can do 10 drawings, but I couldn't do 10 drawings. I ended up doing like, I don't know, maybe like 3 or 4 or something like that. It was a tall task, but I followed up Benjamin's class with Benjamin's class again in the advanced drawing section in the spring of 2019. And in this one, I was really experimenting by then. I had completely lost any type of like desire to draw in the form that you see earlier as the fresh out. Right, I had abandoned that. Like it's not going to work with the workload that they're asking, and also what they're asking for is to produce more than what you're already doing. And for me, I started to think very conceptually. I was like, okay, well, you know what I want to do? I really want to make an artwork on using fingerprint powder.
Huh.
And I was like, well, why do you want to do that? That was the question for me. Was why do you want to do that? For me, it had to do a lot with experience. I had experience with fingerprinting because I've been fingerprinted a lot. Yeah. But also, there was a couple of times when I was younger where I was accused of breaking into people's homes in the neighborhood that I lived in Santa Barbara. And the police showed up and they basically dusted our apartment for fingerprints. This was like very traumatizing for me because at the time, so I did a lot of bad stuff as a kid, but I didn't do that. I didn't bring it in no one's home. They just like assumed that it was me, and they told the police like, yeah, we think it's them, the Mexicans that live down the street. They didn't say that. I'm thinking this, right? So I'm kind of traumatizing myself and trying to recreate the past, but like, somebody obviously led the police to our house, to our apartment, and they came in and they did this whole like crime scene investigation into our home, and they really messed it up. Like that stuff is really hard to clean, by the way.
Yeah.
So I was very like, I mean, I want to say traumatized, but it was just something that I remember like very, very vividly.
It kind of set a precedent in your mind of what to expect. This relationship you now have with the authorities.
Our relationship, my family's relationship with the police was it was fractured.
Yeah.
At that time, because I was young. I was probably like 9 years old. Maybe.
Oh, okay.
So, and so now, like at UCLA, I'm trying to really think conceptually, like what can I do to pivot in a different way than the mode that I'm working in here, which is a very kind of like graphite pencil drawing type of mode. And I'm really thinking about this like way of trying to use fingerprint powder to make an artwork.
And this is a second one that was brought up.
Yeah, these are other iterations. So the one on the left you see here is investigation number 6. And I believe the one on the right is investigation number 16 or 17. So
and for the person driving right now on Interstate 5 through California, through those areas, how would you describe these? I mean, they're fairly amorphous and unclear and hazy imagery. How else would you describe these pieces?
I would describe them as very abstract, black, very like a very dark, deep, dark, cloudy,
gradations,
kind of like amorphous thing happening on the surface.
And it would be easy for us to project our own meanings onto this. I'm seeing all sorts of things in these ephemeral cloud-like forms. You can really project a lot of different shapes and forms in these. It's incredible.
Yeah. So the one thing that I feel you're not seeing in these iterations is my body, but that is exactly what is happening, is that my body was what is creating these objects, these art objects. And the reason why I say that is because at the beginning of this kind of like concept, I was really much focused on my hands, because it's called fingerprint powder.
Right.
It's used to discover fingerprints at crime scenes by crime scene investigators. The powder itself is a magnetic powder that attaches itself to a lot of the things that our body as humans secrete. So we were always pushing things out of our body, out of the pores in our body.
Thank you for that visual. Yeah.
That's enzymes, oil. There's all, your body's like a sponge, and it's constantly leaving stuff behind. Wherever you touch, you're kind of leaving yourself a little bit behind out of like the entire world that you're touching. And so I really wanted to, as if you see on the right side, the brown one here,
the brownish,
you can see some handprints on it. There's some vague kind of like things happening where you can almost handprint.
But these is similar to the other one, like you're saying. Similarly, these become self-portraits as well. These are extensions of you.
Well, yeah, and the reason I say that is because, well, if a crime scene investigator were to come and lift some of this material off of the surface, it's my DNA. They could link it to me right away.
Oh,
it's me that's left behind, and because of that, I always see them as more me than just a representational iteration, such as the drawing that we were looking at earlier, the fresh out drawing. This one can actually, you can clone me if you had the right, in the future when
Sure.
cloning is going to be possible, you might be able to.
I'd say in about a week and a half. Yeah, absolutely.
lifting some of this material off because it's my DNA on this, my sweat. That is exactly what the powder is picking up. If you look at these objects, the darker areas of this iteration, I think I'm right here. I'm already at like number 27. This is kind of,
so we just pulled up a couple of others where you can see body forms even a lot more clearly. There seems to be an arm with some hands. I mean, the way you've manipulated the materials to see some more clarity. And here's another one on dark blue. Those
the
look
dark
huge.
blue one. Yeah, this one, like, I think this one I caught a lot of like attention for by a lot of younger students at UC Irvine. This is where it was showing. They were like, "Why are you kissing yourself?"
Yeah. So for the viewer, for the driver, it's a very dark blue with black on top of it, and through the negative space, we see a form of two figures looking like mirror images, almost kissing each other, surrounded by a single body image and almost wing-like structures behind them.
Yeah, so the wing-like structures are actually my arms. So I'm kind of like doing this thing. So, and this is like where more context is being provided here, or it needs to be provided in order to kind of like understand exactly why you see these wing-like things, which are actually my arms, kind of like in a arms raised, and then there's another position where I like arms lowered. Because what happens is that as I'm working on these, as I'm working out these iterations, I stop kind of like being very experimental with like how I'm using my hands and other things like my face to leave behind these secretions, I guess. And I start to focus on positions that I've been placed in by police. So like if you can imagine this piece here, which is this, it's a piece of plexiglass, but it's black. It's a darkened piece of plexiglass.
Okay. And
on dark surfaces, crime scene investigators have to use fluorescent powders because they cannot use the traditional black powders because they won't, you're not gonna see what it picks up because it's a dark surface. So when they want to lift fingerprints off of very dark surfaces, they'll use these fluorescent ones, and then they hit the fluorescent powders with the UV light, and they have like this glowy effect, which you see in some of the iterations that you've been showing right now. But for me, what started to happen is I started to do this type of performance on the surface of the different varieties of surfaces that I had chosen to do this work on. And so like I started to go through these different iterations or different versions of arrests that I've experienced, either through police, correctional officers, probation officers, any there's people in the world that exist that have the right to put their hands on you. And so as you see this picture here, this is a picture, if you can see, I'm actually laying on a piece of plexi. This is one of the works. I'm performing on it so that my body can leave behind the oils that will later be picked up by the powder.
So for those of us who are driving along Interstate 10, what we see in a black and white photo, we see a plexiglass lying on the floor, you lying on top of that with a sheet covering your lower extremities, face down with your arms behind your back and your face turned away from the camera, pushed up against the plexiglass.
Me doing this is like one of the different kind of like performances that I would do on these surfaces, and later come back with the powder and conduct what I call an investigation of myself or what I left behind. In this photograph, I do have like some boxer shorts on, but usually I don't have anything on. But that, I mean, I'm not there yet. I'm not gonna document. I'm not gonna document that.
And for that, I thank you. I do. But it's a very provocative image, and I think what's significant about this, and certainly I think it's what's happening here, is you're taking an experience that has been quite life-altering for you, starting when you were 9 years old, and your experiences since you've been in prison, since you were arrested. You're taking an act of restraint and turning it into a much more freeing examination, a much more expressive, creative force. You're moving a destructive act into a creative act.
Yes, definitely. I'm trying to as I worked on these more and more and thinking about like, why am I making these artworks? There's this kind of level of critique that I'm trying to investigate or explore uh, um, towards towards these methods of discovering perpetrators or um, pointing out who is guilty,
Mm.
trying to investigate how this like very, I guess you can call it a 100%. I mean, nothing's 100%, but like this very like secure way of discovering evidence and then presenting it in a way where it's gonna pretty much guilty whoever is being, like, if someone says, "Oh, your fingerprints are there," you're automatically guilty.
We've just brought up a video of you actually going through these acts and performing the very expression that these pieces reveal statically.
Yeah. So the process of creating these artworks led to this performance that I do now, called "Leaving the Print," and it's kind of like these very different versions of arrests that I've been placed in by police. And I guess the easiest way to describe it for our people on the freeway is that imagine being put under arrest by a ghost or an invisible authority, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do here in this performance. So I am going through like the orders, like you can see, like they'll say, "Put your hands up, turn around, lift up one foot, lift up the other foot." So you're given these orders, and if you don't follow these orders, you've seen people could get shot, people could get hurt if if you don't follow certain authorities' orders. Kneel on the ground, put your hands on your head, lay down.
What are you thinking of when you're going through this process for the art form? You've been through this on the receiving end for rather negative responses and results. Now you're doing the very same act for these art pieces, and you're doing them time and time again for the performances. It's a two-part question. How are you responding to that? And then going back to your professor at UCLA and the people observing this, how are people, knowing what your background is, responding to this process and this artwork?
I'll touch on I'll touch on both. I'll try to touch on both of them, but
It's okay. I'll remind you.
the first one is one of the first things that I felt I was thinking while I was creating these is this kind of this notion that if you believe, like I believe, and I do believe, that the criminal justice system in the United States is probably or possibly biased towards certain groups of people. If you believe that that is true, then could it also be true that the processes, the trainings, the tools of this system could also be biased? And I think that is kind of like one of the motivators that's going, is like, okay, why am I making these artworks? I'm not trying to, prove these things wrong. I'm just examining them. I'm really trying.
You're observing them. You're bringing them to light.
And at the same time, now, what I'm also doing is reclaiming these situations, because at the time of the arrest, for example, one of these, whichever iteration that you choose, there's no time to think critically about it. It's just happening.
Right.
The police are arresting my ass, and they're going to take me to jail. And there's no real time to critique that or to think critically about it.
Well, it's not like they'll take notes either.
And
right.
Their notes are going to be accepted in court as to
Right.
what happened and how it went down. And even then, there's a bunch of examples in where it was performed wrong, where the arrests were performed wrong, and people got killed in the process. We saw two people during these ICE protests get killed because they didn't do their job right. At least
it's an interesting word. It's an interesting word you're using. You're using the word perform. Again, it's a performative act.
Yeah. It is a performative act, because you look at the word of performance in regards to, like, how are you performing at work? How are we performing? We're always performing in some level or another. But I think a policeman's performance is it's a very hard thing. It's a very hard thing to perform those duties, and
you became an unwilling participant in their performance, if I may say so. I know it sounded flippant.
Exactly.
I know it sounded flippant, but there's a truth to that, where it's not like you've signed up for this, you haven't agreed to it. You're now part of a two-person dance, so to speak.
Yes.
And so, as you were performing these, and as you're being critiqued in your art class, because every art program will critique you, and they're giving you feedback, and they know your story, they know what you've been through. They're watching you do these pieces. They're watching the final results. They're watching the performances. You have an audience now. How are they responding to all this? What are they saying to you?
I'll speak on two different reactions I've had.
Okay.
One, tears. Tears are happening. People that have, and I think it's from people that have experienced that, or they've experienced loved ones in front of them. This happened to them, or they've just experienced a lot of it. And then the other half is crickets. It's hard. It's jaw dropping. I think it's like it's the room's so quiet you can hear their jaws drop.
Wow.
And for me, I think that's a good thing. Like, okay, this is so good that they're speechless.
Well, people are paying attention.
That's how I took it. Like, oh, they're speechless. Like, it's hard to find. It's hard to start to begin critiquing it in that kind of way, because I feel a lot of people haven't had that experience, especially at a place like UCLA. I felt like there was a lot of there's a lot that, I was in a bachelor's program with a lot of younger folks that probably, they didn't experience this contact with police the same way I have. But overall, still good. The loss of words was a good thing for me.
I think that's a remarkable observation. I remember when I lived there in the late 80s, there were students that would go to UCLA, and then there was a particular caliber of students that went to UCLA, but that's around Westwood, and in Westwood, and especially in '87, there was this uprising in gang activity where those who weren't involved in gangs were being affected. So there were people who were passersby that would get shot because of drive-by shootings, and all of a sudden it became a tragedy because now the gangs are infiltrating suburbia, so to speak. And so you're bringing awareness into UCLA. It's not coming out and observing it on the streets where there's some kind of bastion of safety in those walls, but rather you're showing them inside. This is a reality. This is what it's like right outside our doors.
Yeah, this is the reality of what it's like for large groups of people. And there's also, for me, this level of reclamation of it. Like, it's safe for me to not reenact it, because that's not what's happening. I'm not reenacting it.
No, you're changing it.
I'm rememorizing it. There's this concept developed by Toni Morrison called rememory, where you think of the past, and the past is so strong that it's still there with you at all times. But you have the power to reclaim it and do something positive with the negative energy that happened in those past events. Now, she was talking about slavery and how they can overcome those traumas, but I think this is also a very, very kind of adjacent situation where there's still what I believe modern day slavery, which is the prison industrial complex of the United States.
Ooh. Now, I think that's
very
very on point. I think I think your work, for those of you who haven't yet gotten a chance to go to Berto's website, go to his site, take a look at these works, take a look at these paintings, read his statements, because I think they're revealing, they're eye-opening. There are crickets because we're sitting here with awkwardness, with discomfort, as it should be. This is art for discomfort, to bring to us awareness of what it's really like in these circumstances. It's not so cut and dry, 3-minute arrest, let's cut to commercial, and let's now show the next scene where they're in jail. This is a process that is quite dehumanizing and destabilizing. And so for you to reclaim that and make it a part of an art piece that brings attention to it, and you being a very real 3-dimensional being, I think hits that message home, which can be very overwhelming. That's just my read on it. I'm sure that other people may have something different. I'd love to hear other people's comments when they listen to this. And also, I think this provides for us a wonderful transition, because here now you're moving from your artwork, which was about static imagery and drawings and paintings. You turn them into performance pieces that rely on an audience to respond and react. And then you start transitioning into your own current focus on engaging with the community, hoping to bring change into the communities that you're now finding yourself in, and telling these stories and showing these works. Tell us about that transition, and tell us about some of the wonderful things that you're doing now. I put a biased spin on that by calling it wonderful, but perhaps we'll let the listener judge. Please.
Okay, so All right, two things before I really get into that. One,
Sure.
when I got out, and one of these things that I've always kept in mind, that I've always had I hold on to it very tight, is this idea of second chances, right? So I was given a second chance to get out. Maybe I wasn't bestowed on it by the state, or you can say like maybe I was blessed by God. I'm not sure, but I had an opportunity to get out, right? I was charged with the murder, and a lot of times in the communities in a lot of different communities, especially in Southern California and other places, of course, you're gonna lose that. You're gonna lose that fight, whether you did it or you didn't do it. The chances of you getting out of a murder beef, being from a certain community, coming out of a certain community, it's gonna be an uphill battle. Even if you didn't do it, even if you didn't do the crime, you're gonna get a bit. What'll happen is a lot of times in the criminal justice system in America is that you're gonna end up doing a plea deal, which is what I did. That, okay, we will stop harassing you with this. We're not gonna completely destroy your life, but you're gonna sign this dotted line on all these other charges that you are guilty of. And so for me, I was like, okay, fine. I didn't want to roll the dice. I have a co-defendant who got life without the possibility of parole. And so they were like, okay, you sign on the dotted line, we'll drop the murder case, but you're going to go upstate too, and you're going to admit that you are a gang member. For me, I was like kind of like put in a very tight situation. Like, am I going to roll the dice and take it to a jury, or should I just sign the deal? And for me, I was like, I'm going to sign it. I'd rather do 12 than a possible never. So there's that. So in regards to second chances, I always feel that the second chance that I got provided, now that I'm back out, was not for me to keep. I feel like I was. There's something about that concept that I'm always holding very tight. My second chance wasn't for me to keep. I'm always trying to give it back. How do you give it back? How do you give? I could have easily just got out, gone back to the same life that I was living before prison, gone back to the same type of thoughts and actions and behaviors and habits that I had before prison. But it didn't happen that way. And it didn't happen that way because I'm always thinking of, how am I going to give this chance back? How do we do that? And for me, I'm always trying to look for ways to like provide that, and especially the people that who seem to be not having that type of luck or that type of blessing. For example, there's an adolescent. His name is Eric, and he just got accepted to UCSB art school. And we talked about Eric, right? And he's still in the juvenile hall. He's still fighting this case. They want to try him as an adult at the Orange County Juvenile Hall, and he's been in custody for almost 10 years. He's been there since he was 14. He's 24 years old.
24 in juvenile facility?
He's still there. So in California, you have to be kept at a juvenile facility until you're 25. And that is because it has been decided that your adolescent brain stops growing at 25.
So he was tried and then convicted for this crime?
No, he hasn't been tried at all.
So for 10 years, it's still waiting trial.
It's the debate. They've been debating over, are they going to try him as an adult or not?
Oh my God.
So for me though, Eric's life is one of those very like successful moments for me, where like we came into this to the Orange County Juvenile Hall, me and a partner named Ryan Rising, who's also heavy into this type of work, and we did this program where we focused on creative arts and creative writing to some of the participants there at the juvenile hall, and a lot of them really like caught on. It caught on really quick. They loved when we come in. A lot of times I feel as they loved it because we brought them candy.
whatever keeps you inside.
Snacks, right? And like, at first maybe it was, the snack guys are here, but after a while you can see like a lot of them really focused on, like, they wanted to learn this stuff. They wanted to learn how to draw. They wanted to participate in the activities we were providing. A lot of them that would get out, they'd reach back up to us. This was when I was at UC Irvine. So a lot of them, when they would get out of the juvenile hall, they'd come visit the campus, and we would show them around the campus. I would show them my art studio because I did my MFA there. So they provide they provide all the MFAs with their own art studio, and they'd show up and they would really be amazed and like, yeah, I was in prison for 15 years. I really focused, and this is all possible for you. I don't feel like I'm that much of an exception in regards to like level of intelligence. I feel I'm just okay. But one thing I have done is take advantage of the people that have offered to help me. A lot of times when you're young, especially if you're a young male, you're gonna refuse that help. You're just not gonna do it. Even grown males, they're just like, I'm not gonna do it. I don't want. I'm not. I'm not a wuss. I'm not gonna accept nobody's help. That's just the attitude, unfortunately, with a lot of males that are getting out of prison. They feel like they have such little value of themselves that and at the same time refuse any type of help at all. And so for a lot of these kids to actually accept that help, to accept that hand, is very important. So to get back to Eric, Eric, he completes his community college coursework, because there's a community college that goes into the juvenile hall, and then on his own he applies to like 7 universities, because he's an artist, he has a portfolio, and his portfolio gets accepted to UCSB, which is the University of California in Santa Barbara, which is, I think it has a very strong arts program. So it's not like this isn't a I don't know what you would call it, but it takes a lot for someone to develop a portfolio strong enough to get accepted into that.
Of course, yeah.
So he gets accepted, and I had to go and kind of testify on his behalf about why they need to let him out. They need to let him out, and he's going to go straight to the university. That already happened with one of our other participants named Charlie, who got accepted, and I actually already graduated from UC Berkeley. He graduated this year from UC Berkeley.
Oh, that's wonderful! Congratulations.
UC Berkeley, while still in custody as a juvenile, because we helped them apply to all of these universities. I don't know. It's just one of those things where, like, I feel like some of the work that I'm doing could be working.
Yeah, well, I mean, could be working. Come on.
That's the evidence right there. Where like, this is how you know, like, you're doing something.
Look, if the story stopped here with Eric and Charlie, you've changed 2 people, but I suspect it doesn't stop with just those 2. And yet, just those 2 right there are 2 lives that are changed because of your investment in them.
Yeah, so that's the thing. That's the key word too, right there. What you said is invest. You have to invest in your community. Get out and invest in your community, especially if you're an artist today. If you're like, consider yourself a fine artist, any type of artist, part of your toolbox now to be a successful one, I feel, is engaging with your community and uplifting your community. That's like a strong, I think, indicator of where art should be today. Because you think about the past, and you think about these like artists that would just kind of slave away in their studio, and because they're such a brilliant mind that they would just do that. But I think that's not. I feel
we're getting away from the solo act. We're relying on community to help define and create what we're doing. This is amazing.
Yes, and I think that's a very postmodern thing. If we're going to get into art, and art history, it's a move that has grown out of social movements. So, and I think it's informing a lot of the really good art that you see today.
I think what's happening, and I think which is so important, is that obviously what happens, particularly these days, is that community has a tendency to distance themselves from parts of the community that are scary. And as a sense, we keep them at arm's length, and they become 2-dimensional cartoons of us versus them. And you're creating this bridge of saying, no, this is your community. We're all parts of the community. You're not the fringe of the community. You're in the community. And we recognize that. And we're invested in making that happen and making those connections.
Yes.
That's remarkable. So, but tell me though, I mean, look, this is wonderful. And the way you're telling the story sounds fairly straightforward, but there's a lot of obstacles to this. There must be some responses to who you are, where you've come from, what you brought, what you've come along, where people say, quote unquote, once a criminal, always a criminal. Tell us about some of the obstacles that you've overcome to be able to bring this into the community, to make those connections, and to be accepted as a valuable member of your community.
So I think the latest statistic I think that you would hear is that there's over 2 million people in prison.
Yep.
Right. That's a big number. I know there's a lot of people in the United States, so that
but that's 2 million people incarcerated.
It's not proportional to the amount, and definitely not proportional to the groups of people that are being incarcerated.
Right. Break that down even further, and we see some very uneven.
Yeah. But the thing is too, though, that one of the things that's operating this system is this idea of recidivism, where like you get out, you reoffend, and you go in. That's kind of like what's keeping the numbers up, is that it's the same people being put through this revolving door of punishment, criminality, and punishment and discipline. But I think one of the biggest questions that I've heard and that I really kind of agree with is that the people that are coming home, like, they're gonna be your neighbors. You're gonna have a lot of. There's gonna be so many people incarcerated at one point that the chances of one of these incarcerated people to show up and be your neighbor, it's a very highly possible, no matter where you live.
Right.
And if that's the case, like, why would you want like a ignorant neighbor? Why would you want a criminal neighbor? Why would you want a neighbor that's still trying to do these criminal things, living right next to you? I guess if you want to keep people at arm's length, those same people are going to start to get closer and closer as more and more people get incarcerated. So that's one thing for me. It's like, wouldn't you want a neighbor that has experienced some sort of enlightenment, or is coming home and doesn't want to reoffend, doesn't want to be in trouble anymore? And a lot of the times, I feel the programs like the Prison Arts Collective and other type of creative arts and creative writing programs, that's exactly what our aim is to try to bring these enlightened ideas and concepts to the prison in hopes that it's going to change somebody's mind. Yeah. And so that's one of the arguments that I have towards that. And I know there's a lot of critique about that, especially like for example, me at UCLA. I mean, people could easily say, like, why are you here? You're taking the spot of somebody that didn't break the law. So why are you getting special treatment? And it's, for me, that's a very kind of shallow argument as to why people, I guess,
an ignorant response.
Yeah. But I think it is the pushback, and it's something that we're constantly trying to demystify. And that's the very thing. Like, wouldn't you want your neighbors to be enlightened, to be smarter, or what? In your mind, smarter in your mind. But at the same time, then you talk about docility. Is like, how docile do we all need to be for certain people to be satisfied?
Wow, that's a whole nother question. I mean, you mentioned 2 million people are incarcerated, and that's absolutely correct. And what another statistic is, and 95% of them are going to get out at one time or another, and they are going to be living next door to us. Don't we want programs? Don't we want programs and projects to focus on reincorporating them and having them feel a part of society and feel part of it, so that there's a way for all of us to kind of reintegrate? It's not just them reintegrating into our society, it's us reintegrating with them, so to speak, the us versus them, recognizing that it's all us, it's all about us. And I think you're a wonderful example of demonstrating that bridge, demonstrating the importance of that bridge, demonstrating the value of not only getting out and staying out and being creative and producing, you're also then taking that and working with others and helping others get through that process and coming out on the other side. And you're doing it at one person at a time. And I think that's remarkable.
Yes, doing it one person at a time. One thing I want to touch on too is that a lot of these values that I feel I have were kind of like installed during my time at school. So, for example, when you apply to the UC system, right, the University of California, there's two systems. There's the Cal State system.
That's what I belong to. Yeah.
Right. You're Cal State, Florida, right?
No, I was Cal State Long Beach.
Oh yeah, Cal State Long Beach.
Yeah. Yeah. When I did my undergraduate there years and years ago.
So one of the details of the UC is that they have these, what they call personal insight questions. And there's some like level of holistic focus that the UC wants to do in regards to these personal insight questions. They want to find out, who are you? What do you do? What have you done for your community? Besides the other questions like your GPA and like how smart are you? There is like these other questions where like, have you done anything in your community that is important, that you feel is important? And for me, almost every question had to do with incarceration and helping my community. There's like almost, I brought up my, the bad part was that I brought up my incarceration in every question that I answered, only because it became so much part of my life that it's hard to like not bring it up. It became such a long time in my life.
Yeah.
It's really hard to not bring it up when I'm trying to explain a bunch of other things. But one of them was that I really wanted to reach out and help people that had not experienced the men's prison, focusing on adolescents in juvenile hall.
Mm-hmm.
For my whole thing was like, why don't we just I know that we're helping people that are getting out of prison, right? That's very important. But what if like they never went? What if they never went to the men's prison? Maybe that could like nip it in the bud there. But how do you do that? And for me, it was always about that's not the only people that you need to help. Like, it's like, yes, that's important. It's important to help, but you gotta help be ready to help all types of communities, like everybody. You need to have that attitude where like it doesn't matter what community it is, just as long as you gotta help somebody. And that's kind of like something I learned just being involved in like campus groups, for example, right? I was part of like the art club. I was part of a writing club. I was a part of all these clubs, you know. I'm like the 40-year-old guy showing up and a little creepy, maybe. I don't know. I don't know or what, but, you know, a lot of these college kids, they were young and it was scary. For me, it was scary. One of the scariest things was the community college campus. For me, I was like, man, haven't experienced this fear since I was at the level 4 yard.
You were scared of them. Yeah. People will be surprised to hear that, Berto. But I think that's significant. I think we have been raised as a culture to fear those that are inside the fence. And what we don't realize is the people who come out are now scared of what they're facing. And I think what we need to do is work towards eradicating this fear and humanizing everybody.
Yes.
I think your work is remarkable, Berto, and I can't wait to hear more and more about what you've done, what you're doing. We're going to continue working together, both through the Prison Arts Collective and ideally through the Institute. I suspect and will almost guarantee that there will be a part 3 sometime down the road as you continue to evolve. When you're done with your dissertation, I want you online here, giving your dissertation defense here. I want to hear it for everybody. Berto, as always, it's such a pleasure to talk with you. And everybody who gets a chance, go to his websites, go to albertolule.com and take a look at his work. Watch his videos, learn more about him, because that will allow us to learn more about us. Thank you
so much, Dave.
Creativity Unconfined has been brought to you by Florida State University's Institute for Arts and Art Therapy with the Imprisoned. Special thanks to our producers Sydney Nichols and Malia Burrows, as well as Florida State University's College of Fine Arts. If you like what you heard, and even if you didn't, please support us by liking and subscribing.